Hey there. Just getting warmed up here and inviting people to the room. So we'll get started shortly. I just sent you a request for co-hosting. You should be able to get it. Hey, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Yes. Thought it'd be fun. I was thinking of fun topics or titles for the room, and I was like, you know what? I'm seeing people talk a lot about crazy stuff happening on the platform, and so I thought it'd be fun to kind of say, well, why don't we talk about that? Let's talk about all the crazy things that are happening on LinkedIn, good or bad. I think that'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I feel like this last week there was just a lot. Um, the Unilad guy coming out and saying like, don't pay for, and it was like a couple of people that did it. Like they all kind of jumped on the bandwagon and were like, don't pay for LinkedIn experts. You can do it just like this. It's like okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
I was thinking about that when I was thinking about some DMs I got today or the last couple of days. So I just sent a voice message saying to the to well, Andy's DM, just saying like, dude, like it's not a big deal. Like relax, it's fine. Like almost everybody who got listed on that LinkedIn international list, they were, they're they're grateful and they're supportive. And the only issue really is that one guy who put himself at number one on the list because that's his list.
yeah,
Like, if
I mean
if anything, complain about that and just call that guy out versus sending messages to everybody saying, "Hey, I can't believe you supported this thing." Like, guys, like we're just,
just call the guy out. Like if you don't support it, just say, hey, you know, I mean, yeah, I'd be, I think it's just somebody that has kind of forgotten, like for a lot, I mean, a lot of those people on that list, that doesn't happen, regardless of what kind of list it's coming out on, like, so you got to be like, remember what that can mean to somebody else, like that isn't in your position.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing I think I was telling Rachel was that there's a lot of people who were mentioned on the list that are kind of starting out or trying to build a business on LinkedIn, and so from my standpoint, I mean, if it brings awareness to them and what they're trying to do and helps out their businesses, I'm all for that. I mean, the ones who are super established and are doing quite well for themselves, I understand that they may not care, and that's fine. But the ones who need that support, I think it's a really good thing to help them out even if that one person made a mistake. I mean, he may have a criteria that even we don't agree with, and there's parts of that I didn't agree with. But whatever, I kind of roll with it. I mean, I don't think that the number of skills or recommendations should be should tell you how awesome you are as an expert.
Yeah.
But that's fine. I mean, that was his criteria, and just and I kind of rolled with it in terms of what he wanted to do. So that's fine. I mean, but and so that is one of the number one craziest things that I've seen happen this week
Yeah.
on LinkedIn. And for those who are joining us, we're talking about some of the crazy stuff we're seeing on LinkedIn, and we'd love to get more people in the room. So if you want to retweet that tweet in the nest up above, the link there, or you want to you can click the arrow button on top there and DM up to 20 different people right away. It's pretty easy. You just select them. That works really, really well. So the big thing that happened this week was someone came out with a list on LinkedIn about the top 50 international experts, and he based it on a criteria. And what happened was he set up a post, I guess about a month ago. But hey, nominate people you think are really good people on LinkedIn. So people did do that, and then um, so I mean, and that's a popularity contest, of course, to start. So not everyone got mentioned, but then he ranked them on a criteria, and then what happened was he put himself as number one, which which just the craziest,
It still makes me laugh.
dumbest thing you could ever do. Like I can't imagine doing something like that. I would never do something like that. Um, I put in. Remember last year I did a newsletter where I shared the top 100 the top 100 thought leaders I met in the past year, and I put them on a list on LinkedIn. Now, can you imagine if I put myself number one? I mean, that would have been just absolutely nonsense to have done that. And I didn't do that, but it would have been just crazy to do that. Why would you put yourself number one? So I think that was just hilarious. I mean, what did you think when you saw that?
I mean, first, when I first saw it, I actually thought, I mean, I was, of course, 'cause I have a lot of friends that are on that list. I was really happy for everybody. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I mean, you, Bobby, have been recognized multiple times and rightfully so, but there was a lot of people on that list that, haven't necessarily been recognized. And for them, I was really, happy. Like, you mentioned Rachel Simon. Um, there's great careers. So that's Lynn. So Lynn was on that list. And so I was super excited for those people because I feel like oftentimes these lists, we see the same names over and over. So I was like, oh, wow, this is really great. This is great recognition. And then I went to the list and I was like, is the number one? I had to ask myself, like, wait a minute, like, is the guy that created the list number one? And so I was literally like, okay, whatever. And I didn't really, honestly, it was odd, but I didn't think much about it. It made me laugh. It still makes me laugh because I just think like somebody, I don't know. I can just imagine like sitting around a table and thinking about like, hey guys, let's roll out this list. Like that would be like us in the Thought Leadership Branding Club saying, let's roll out this list, of people that we think you should be following. Okay, let's do that. But it's one thing then to be like, maybe, okay, well, we're going to have to, we have to have some criteria that maybe we don't, include ourselves as like, maybe we still include ourselves if there's criteria, but we don't necessarily go, oh, we're number one, two, we're the top five. So it's really a list of 45.
I'll be honest. I didn't actually notice it at first, right? I just kind of went down. I was like, oh, Brenda's the top, great, and I kept scrolling, and I was like, oh wow, I'm number 8. That's surprising because I'd gotten a message about I guess a week or so ago saying, hey, by the way, you're going to be on our list. I said, great, and could you please share? I said, sure, I'll share it, no problem, happy to share it. And so when I came out, I saw people complaining about another post. And Richard Vanderbaum, to his credit, at least is talking about it publicly versus me getting private DMs from a certain person. I think he was talking about publicly about how he didn't like it, and he pointed out, "Hey, this guy's first," and we're like, "What?" And then everyone started asking, "Why would this guy put himself first?" In fact, if you knew the context of the of the actual list, he did a list specifically for his area. Like I think where he was based, he's based in Germany. So the people and his colleagues, they made a list. And so why don't we do a list that's international, including people in North America and whatever it might be. And that's what they did because they're based in Europe. And then he still put himself on the list, number one. So that's kind of where it kind of fell apart. So, I think that the discussion came that way. And so what I did was I was like, well, I think what I'll do is it seems silly to put himself number one, but I'm still going to post it because I said I would. And I'll mention the bias that comes in some of these lists, but I'm also going to mention the gratitude I have for being mentioned. I'm going to share the gratitude for the people who are there and maybe give them a shout out because it's a great way to support people in their community that are doing good work, regardless of the rankings or the outcomes. If you remove this person from that list, everyone there is actually really, really awesome. So I think that to me is the way to kind of go about it. So that's what we did. So today we're talking about the crazy shit that happens on LinkedIn, and I'm calling it the loungers of LinkedIn. It's just I'm trying to have fun today with titles and names. I think it'd be fun to kind of share some of the crazy stuff you've seen on the platform. And what's the learning from that, or maybe it's a learning of what not to do on the platform. I think that's really what I want to talk about. So if anybody wants to come on stage and share their thoughts or knowledge on that, I would love to hear from you. And if people don't show up, Melanie, we'll just we'll end it quicker than normal. So that's the one thing I would say was the first thing that came to my mind. Has there anything that you've seen, Melanie, that was a little bit kind of crazy and weird on the platform, like something else, like maybe anything this year, really?
Yeah, I mean, well, I mentioned it to you. There was multiple people. It wasn't Unilad guy was one of them, but it was multiple people that came out and said, "Don't pay for, um, you don't need to pay for, pay like LinkedIn experts for their money, and you don't need to pay for it. Like, stop paying people for their money, and or stop paying. I can't talk this today, but stop paying people for their LinkedIn expertise. You can just do it on your own." And having been somebody that tried to do it on their own, like that doesn't actually work. And like you really have to like understand a lot of what happens behind it, like algorithmically. So there's a lot that goes into it. And of course, I do get paid by my clients to help them with their personal branding and LinkedIn. Hey, Adam. So the fact that he came out, but what really kind of shocked me was who I would consider a personal friend, and a friend at least in the I guess the LinkedIn space and other spaces, did a post that basically supported what this guy said. The problem I had was this gentleman has gives out advice. He doesn't charge for it, but he does give out advice, and he's ridden the coattails of many people that were quote unquote on that list that you just mentioned. So I was like, I don't know what you're trying to aim here for, and I don't personally feel like you're attacking me, but I was like, you're attacking a lot of people that you are, that you quote unquote, and you've actually paid, and I know for a fact you've paid a very big time LinkedIn coach to help you to get you where you were at, which is, again, I have nothing wrong with that, but like, just don't bite the hand that fed you. So I just, that rubbed me a little wrong way. And so I think I've been a little, I think I mentioned this on a call we had. I've been a little triggered by what I feel like are kind of white angry men posts, like just just complaining. It's like angry old grumpy men just complaining about stuff. And I'm like, folks, we need to be happy. like seriously, can we just be happy? Like, can we just be grateful for where we're at and what we have? Like, seriously. So I don't know. That's
Yeah, and I think for me, the way I handle all the weird stuff that happens on the platform, whenever it comes my way, sometimes I get a direct message, sometimes I get a really weird comment, sometimes I see a post that I find very, very odd. The thing I focus on is gratitude, right? I mean, gratitude helps me ground myself. Gratitude helps me understand kind of the context of where I am. I think about what may have made that person post. Like I understand someone posting like what you just said. They post that because they want to be different. I mean, there's people saying, you don't need someone to lose weight. You can do it on your own. You don't need somebody to help you with, you know, getting a job.
yeah.
You don't need somebody to network better. There's articles, there's books. Like, just go do it yourself. But the truth is, every single one of us needs help sometimes because we need accountability. We have mindset issues. We need coaching. We need focus. Like, whatever you're trying to do, having a coach or having someone who can help you with that stuff can be something needed or good. So I think that's why a lot of people do that. So I think people who post that way, and it may come across as crazy, but I think they're doing it to have like that cognitive dissonance, get some attention, and maybe have 20 people argue with them about why they're wrong, and they maybe don't care. They just want the likes. Clinton, welcome to the stage. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. Happy Sunday. Thank you for the invitation to take part in this space. Pleasure to be here. For your
Yeah, glad to have you.
co-host, my name's Clinton DeVoe. Yeah, speaking of LinkedIn, I've really enjoyed LinkedIn. I was one of those very early adopters of LinkedIn going back many, many, many years when there was a handful of people using LinkedIn. And I've been quite happy to see LinkedIn grow the way that it has, the way that it's matured and developed. And, I write from time to time for different magazines and newspapers. And sometimes when I haven't had any luck getting my work published, I have posted some of my thoughts on LinkedIn, some detailed analysis of issues that are affecting Canada. And what I have found is there have been times where my articles that I've posted on LinkedIn have exceeded over 50,000 unique views. And for that, I'm incredibly thankful for LinkedIn. And when that has happened on LinkedIn, and it's happened to me on about a half dozen different occasions, it's opened up a door or a portal, if you will, to a radio station or a newspaper or a magazine or some other publication that that will then turn around and publish the story that I've written, like with some changes, obviously, because they don't want to do a carbon copy of what I have on LinkedIn. So my point is LinkedIn is crazy, and I think it's crazy in a good way. And and to sort of use the title here, the crazy shit that happens on LinkedIn. Without LinkedIn, I would not have some of the success that I've been able to garner over the last 15 years. So I'm very thankful for the tool.
Yeah, thanks so much, Clinton, for sharing that. And I think again, we see a lot of crazy stuff everywhere, whether it's here on Twitter or whether you see like even now it's weird. Like for some reason I'm tweeting this and posting this, but we have a small room today, so it's kind of odd, but that's okay. I mean, normally I start rooms just the day like a few minutes before. This one I actually promoted several hours ago, so. That's okay, but it's good to have this conversation. We'll have the recording replay recorded. It'll be uploaded to YouTube, so it's good. We're sharing some good knowledge here. I see crazy stuff happening on Twitter now, like too. I mean, I'm seeing tweets from people that I don't follow, and nor do I care to see their tweets. I think it's a terrible strategy because on any platform you want to follow, like unless they've paid for sponsored ads or whatever, that's different. But when I follow and unfollow people on LinkedIn or Instagram or wherever it might be, I only follow people that I want to see their stuff, and the ones who I don't want to see their stuff, I don't want to see their stuff. So I think that's a very common follow unfollow strategy people use. So that's something weird that's happening. That's on Twitter, but I want to focus on LinkedIn and see what other crazy stuff people have seen on the platform. Adam, you're up on stage. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Anything you've seen that you think is crazy that happens on LinkedIn?
Oh wow! First, I'm kind of happy to my Twitter Spaces, Bobby. Have been kind of temperamental lately, so
Yeah,
we
that's
we
right.
don't even know how long it's going to be working for me today. But I'm glad to hop in here. The thing that is interesting to me about LinkedIn and I see this, and maybe this is kind of like an old curmudgeonly take is I look sometimes at some of the, and I am speaking very, very generally here, some of the who are putting out content as thought leaders or particularly like life coaches at what appear to me to be very young, inexperienced ages. And there's always a caveat, and the caveat for me is always, someone who has a very particular life experience, maybe having battled, alcoholism or homelessness or whatever, very, very, very specific life experiences that can happen at just about any age. But I do see a lot of content on LinkedIn where it's like generic life, kind of like life coaching, motivational speaking kind of stuff from like someone who's just out of high school. And it's not I'm not about discouraging, motivational content. Certainly positive content is a big part of what I try to put out and engage with. But I'm a little bit skeptical because I think about when I was 19, I thought I knew everything. And I think that that's just the nature of growing up is you kind of, you think you know everything. And then one of the most important things you learn is, boy, you really don't know everything. And a big part of recognizing that is also recognizing the massive power of gratitude and of reaching out and saying to people, especially around this time of year. I mean, expressing gratitude for someone showing you how to do something, or being able to learn from someone or emulate their example. And some of the content I see from people who are coming up, I'm a big fan of the positivity, but I see a gap in not seeing a lot of gratitude in some of the content just from what has come through my feed. And that's something that I think can certainly be rectified. It's very easy to turn around and start putting out content that is, wow, I love this post, or I learned a lot from this video, or I really like the content that this other person is putting out. It's teaching me all kinds of new stuff. So it's not necessarily a criticism of age as, oh, you shouldn't be doing that. It's more, if we're going to be putting out positive content like that and motivational content like that, I think it's really critical that we accompany it with the gratitude component and the message that we're all still learning. We're all still kind of on a journey. No matter how successful you might be, you're still growing. So maybe that's kind of a curmudgeonly Sunday mindset. But I think at this time of year, it becomes very clear to me that there's always room for improvement, and self-reflection.
It didn't come to me as a curmudgeonly. I mean, I think that was a fine and fair comment. I think
I appreciate that.
I think there's a lot of things. There's a lot of stuff on LinkedIn that sometimes comes across as crazy, and that's why I think it's fun to have this little conversation about that. To see different examples. The thing that I find, maybe it's not a crazy thing, but I find really amusing was I was at a LinkedIn local event on Thursday night, and a gentleman came up to me, and he does LinkedIn Learning. And he's done lots of LinkedIn Learning courses. Great, good for him. And but he started talking to me about that. Like, there's LinkedIn's going crazy these days, because of all these people talking about personal stories and talking about their lunch and talking about their, and he's doing the whole, this is Facebook thing, that type of thing, which I think is really silly, to be honest. I think that's crazy too. I think that's a crazy thing where people get really, and to Melanie's point, another old white man. But anyways, it's another funny point where people get the older dickers than not about what I would call personalized content. And there's a reason why we have personalized content, because storytelling and sharing the human experience is something that, all good relationships, including business relationships, are built on. And so that's why you share those stories. That's why you talk about those things. And so it was just funny to see him get all, upset about that. And I think the other thing I've noticed is some people are talking about, even people here on Twitter, some of my LinkedIn colleagues are talking about how there's more rampant, I guess, people going overboard with the personal content and doing like really, I don't know, jaw-dropping opening lines to get your attention to read the rest of their post. And I understand that frustration. That is another thing that's a little bit crazy on LinkedIn that's going up. These posts, I would say that they're quite repetitive. Like the same person doing the same thing over and over again. They do the same kind of catchy way to get your attention with a very personal or very vulnerable post to get you to, I guess, click see more and then read the rest of it and possibly engage. So I think that's some of it is a bit more on the crazy stuff side of things. And so I can see why people are concerned about that. I was curious what the rest of you think about that. I mean, Melanie, what do you think about that complaint that people have?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think that people need to understand social media is evolving and LinkedIn is evolving and has evolved. You have the picture up there. We just did our workshop yesterday, and one of the things that I talked about was when I first started on LinkedIn's platform. It was right when it had come out. It was a snooze fest. It was so boring. Like I hated it. I was like, this is like the most boring thing. I mean, I might as well just read a newspaper. I mean, like there was just nothing. So I mean, so I think we're probably seeing some of that continued evolution. And I mean, I hope that I can, I'll be 50 next year, so I hope that I can like stay in tune with the times, folks. I know it sounds old, but but yeah, I mean, I think that we just kind of need to go with it. And yeah, I'm sure there's people that cross the line. I mean, today, like I saw a post, and I did comment on it. He said, I don't have kids. He was an entrepreneur, and he was talking about like, one day when I have kids, I don't want them to have typical careers. And he gave a bunch of reasons why. And then he was like, I really am going to make my kids become entrepreneurs too. And, as a mom to 2 kids, I was like, good luck with that. I'm like, yeah, good luck with that, because it's a human being. So good luck with that. And I mean, and my kids will not be entrepreneurs. My daughter wants to be a forensic scientist. That's what she's studying for in school. That's what excites her. She has goals of working for the FBI. Her career will not be an entrepreneur. Okay. So, she has big plans. So, and my son has taken a little bit less a little bit of a different path. It maybe isn't the path I even saw him go on. But you know what? The kid's worked his ass off, pardon me, but he has. He's paid off his school loans within 3 years. He paid him during the pandemic when he didn't have to do it. And now all he talks about is like or being able to retire early. He's totally into the stock market and saving and investing and he is living his best 27-year-old life. So, I'm like, yeah, good luck with that, dude. But again, maybe not giving advice on what you plan on doing with your future children. When you maybe don't have that, I think if you don't really have a point of view of being a parent, it's a little bit, maybe that's not necessarily the direction you should go with your post.
It's funny being an entrepreneur myself. I have a huge investment in hopefully my kids go a similar path because I don't want them to go through the corporate stuff that I went through. But I totally get you, Melanie. I mean, when they're older, they'll probably forge their own path and figure things out and whatnot. So I appreciate that.
I mean, I had a kid, my forensic scientist, the reality is too, she also plays field hockey. She's goalie on our field hockey team. She also sings and dance. And, there's a period of time where, we didn't have a clue what this kid was going to do. We worried if she went to New York and went to school there that she'd probably just go and audition for Broadway plays all the time. But we've supported her in every single adventure. And so now during spring, she goes and she'll audition for the play, which she did her freshman year. So, so again, wouldn't have been my path, but, she's just multi-talented. So I always just say I'm on their ride with them and wherever we end up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Adam, your hands up. Go ahead.
This is such a timely topic because I did a TikTok video, I think on Friday. I'll probably post it tomorrow to a link to LinkedIn. And it was just an article that I ran across, one of these like CNBC kind of things that show up in your Twitter feed now. To Bobby's point, it's like a whole lot of stuff coming through that I'm not following, but they're messing with the algorithm. But there were two components to it, which I thought were comment worthy. The first was like, one of those clickbait titles, like the rare skill that 70 successful entrepreneurs teach their kids, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like a list of like skills that not being a parent yet, but any normal good parent, I think, would imbue in their children. So things like curiosity and, learning how to solve problems, possibly looking for creative solutions, and maybe there isn't a right answer. Just things that I think are good for people in general to know. You don't have to be like a hyper successful entrepreneur. And then the second portion was something about the person who wrote it. It was like a guest post, had written a book, and it was kind of like raising an entrepreneur. And it was, from what I read from the article, it's kind of appeared as like how to get your kid to be an entrepreneur kind of a text. Anyway, that was my takeaway. And it got me thinking that, I don't know many entrepreneurs who set out to say, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, the way that we do those, like, when you were in second grade, what do you want to be? I don't know. I want to be a police officer. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor or whatever. You wake up, in my experience, you just wake up one day and you just kind of are one. And you go, oh, there's a word for it. That's kind of cool. But I think that a big part of understanding how to support entrepreneurship, and especially like as you're raising kids or if you're like in a teaching mode, is recognizing that entrepreneurship, a lot of entrepreneurship is trying out different things, having lots of different conversations. I mean, and that was my takeaway, was like the biggest like secret skill, quote, that wasn't in that article was really great entrepreneurs, and I think business people in general, just have significant amounts of conversations with people every day. And they have lots and lots of dialogues, and with a mindset that is, well, let's see where this goes. There's no downside to having lots of different conversations and being open to learning from people. And if you do that with a feeling of gratitude and a feeling of empathy and looking to create value before you ask for it, then really interesting things can kind of materialize when you're not looking. And you don't have to be of the mindset that is, my kid has to be a carbon copy of me. And I think that's I think that's also, Bobby, I think that you made a really good distinction there. It's, you kind of would want from what I heard, you would want your kids to be saved from some of the corporate frustrations that you might have experienced in your career, right? Which is a lot different than saying, oh, they have to be the same as I am. It's, as a parent or as an older sibling or as some kind of leader, you want your sister or your kid to be saved from that mental frustration, if it's possible. And so it's interesting that, just Melanie, that you brought up this topic, because it just was such a noteworthy thing when I made the video the other day. It was like, oh, I didn't say to my parents, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was just a lot of family dinners and holiday dinners that are, so what do you do again? I don't know. I do a little bit of everything, which I think we all kind of have that personal experience.
Well, I can tell you one thing. My kids, because they were both pretty much raised with me being a recruiter, that was the one thing that they were never going to do. And I did not grow up to want to be a recruiter before I became a career coach. So, that they got to, my daughter, my son was 5 when I started recruiting, and my daughter was like literally born into me being a recruiter. That's all she experienced it firsthand. 60-hour work weeks, being in the office with me, whatever, filing. I mean, she, my assistant, my assistants in the offices that I managed, were like her babysitters. So she's like, there was one thing my kids did learn: I will never do that. So yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I just said, hey, I just want my kids to be happy and make sure they're pursuing something they want. And yeah, I didn't plan out on being an entrepreneur. I think my parents were just happy I had a job at some point, because I was the kid that wandered and never knew what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I'm still figuring it out.
Yeah, me too. Still figuring out, Melanie. Clinton, go ahead.
Yeah, so when it comes to entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and that type of mindset, I don't believe for one instant that it is something that can be taught. I believe that entrepreneurs come from two groups of individuals, and I'm speaking as someone who's, I consider myself to be a pretty successful businessman, and I don't mind patting myself on the back when I say that, although when some people hear that, they roll their eyes and it annoys them. So the two groups that I see are people that are just born as entrepreneurs. They're natural salespeople. I don't want to say salesmen, because obviously, we live in a world of equality. So salespeople. So you have people that are born as natural salespeople that are looking to find a solution to a problem, whatever that problem is, and how to generate money from that problem. And then the second group are people who naturally, at some point in their life, they've never done business, they've never done entrepreneurship. And then at some point in their life, something happens, a light bulb moment happens, and they say, I want to do this. I don't believe that you can groom or coach someone into being an entrepreneur. So I'll use my own example, my own life example. So when I was 13 years old, I was living in Canada's nation capital of Ottawa. I started on my 13th birthday. My parents owned a bakery slash donut shop. And I said to my parents, I want to take the products that we make and I want to bring them downtown Ottawa next to a very popular summer a summer social event called the Ottawa Exhibition. And I set this up on a very busy street in Ottawa. And I had all these ideas that I was going to make all kinds of money and I would pay my parents back for the product that they had lent me, and then I would generate profit. And of course, it failed miserably. And most people in a scenario like that, especially at the age of 13, would have just said, "Oh, forget this," and they would have moved on to doing whatever else 13-year-olds like to do in life. So what I did was I went home. My parents asked me how it went, and I said I didn't sell anything. I was outside for 10 hours, and I basically wasted the day. So my parents sort of had a little chuckle. I went to bed that night uh, thinking in my head, what could I have done different? Where could I have positioned myself in relation to the foot traffic? What different products could I have offered? What times would have been better? What kind of sales pitch could I have done in order to attract people? And then I went and did it again. And the second time, I hit the ball out of the park. Even though I was 13 years old, it was a tremendous success. And I remember being 13 at the time and reading a book, not a business book, but I guess you could call it a fictional business book by a famous Canadian children's author by the name of Gordon Corman, who was from uh, Southern Ontario, somewhere in the GTA. And he wrote a book called No Coins Please. And No Coins Please is about a 13-year-old kid who goes away on a camping trip and develops all of these entrepreneurial business schemes to essentially entertain himself over the course of his summer vacation. And he becomes this raging successful businessman. And I remember reading that book at 13 and thinking, wow, I see myself as the character in this book. And then obviously you get older, things happen in life, ups and downs, successes and failures, and you either become an entrepreneur or you don't. You either become a successful person in sales or you don't. You become a business person or you don't. And that's why I take umbrage in the most polite way possible with this idea that you can train people, like grown adults, to become entrepreneurs. Like I say, I believe you either have it or you don't. And I believe there are people who discover it later in life. But those are individuals who I believe have always had those abilities and those characteristics. It's just that their roadmap in life led them to discovering that about themselves later on. And I do believe that there's large segments of society that aren't capable of doing that. And it's not because they're bad people. It's not because they're lazy people. It's nothing like that. It's because they live a life and where the idea of checking in at 9 o'clock, checking out at 5 o'clock, working Monday to Friday, 35 or 40 hours a week with a guaranteed vacation and benefits package is the thing that motivates them. And many of those individuals would look at business people, at entrepreneurs, at salespeople, and they would sort of say, "Wow, that's kind of a weird existence that those people have." And so that's why I say that it's something that it's either born in you, and you discover it at a young age, or you discover it at a later age. But I'm not convinced that it's something that can be taught. Anyways, I'll place myself on mute. I really enjoy this conversation.
It's interesting. I'm going to slightly disagree with you on that. I think and again, we're going off topic because the topic is what's the crazy stuff that happens on LinkedIn. But one of the things to say is that entrepreneurship, like leadership, like many other, I guess, qualities or aspects we talk about, there's certain parts that are ingrained in us and other parts that can be taught. But to what extent? One thing I can say is that, you can groom people or your kids a certain way. I mean, the way my wife and I have groomed our kids to be musical theater lovers, that is entirely our fault. And part of it was planned because there's ways to get them into musical theater, and now they love musical theater because of their parents' influence. And that's just something that can happen. Similarly, entrepreneurship is something that can be ingrained partially from what my father did in encouraging us to do lots. We did a lot of different entrepreneurship type stuff growing up, from selling raspberries on the street to selling chocolate bars to joining this high school entrepreneurship program, and pretty soon getting a love for that. And the other thing that comes into play, of course, is the values, right? I mean, if you have a family that has values on autonomy and independence, or maybe you teach them money management, these are things that can certainly influence how people are groomed to take on certain lifestyles. But that said, I mean, at the end of the day, the kids, they're going to do what they're going to do, and we just have to be there to support them. So, but I love that you brought that up. And the topic today was really about what's the crazy stuff that we're seeing on LinkedIn. Where we're talking about entrepreneurship and how we can we groom kids, can we groom adults. There are certain things you can groom. There's certain things that can influence it. But I also think that just like leadership skills and entrepreneurship skills, those things can be taught. Values are different. Values evolve over time, or evolve because of your personal situation. So, when my whole personal experience with the corporate world definitely gave me enhanced my value of being autonomous, right? Of valuing my autonomy and flexibility in my life. Whereas other people, prefer more rigid structures, or a 9 to 5 thing, and that works for them. For me, it doesn't work, and so that experience evolved my value. Just like having kids evolved my value. Just like marrying someone outside my culture evolved my values compared to my siblings. So those are things that can happen. If anybody else wants to come on stage and share something they've seen that's happened on LinkedIn that they think is kind of crazy, or I'd love to hear it. Just put your hand up and I'll be able to see it, and you can come up on stage and talk about it. I'll share another thing that I think is really interesting, just to get back on topic. Crazy stuff that happens on LinkedIn. I would say that I'm seeing an evolution of pitching people. I get pitched for a lot of stuff on LinkedIn with the DMs. I think my friend Rachel calls them pitch slaps, and often it's about are you generating leads? Are you generating enough leads for your business? That's a big one. These lead gen specialists are always pitching me stuff, and I also now get pitched by these. Actually, I think they're bots, but basically just these people saying, "Hey, your profile, it looks very special. I'd like to be your friend." I was like, "What?" and then they look at the profile, and it clearly looks like a fake profile with a pretty face attached. I'm like, "Wow, that's crazy." Okay, and those ones are kind of weird to me. And then the other one that comes my way are people who are actually in my first connections. They are connected with me, and they send me the longest drawn out thing about something, and it's like, did you even check that I might be interested in this or not? Like, it's just like, oh, like I'd rather say, "Hey, Bobby, how's it going?" and then send me the thing versus this long thing that I don't really care about. Melanie, what were you gonna say?
Yes, so that one where I do get quite a lot, like, wow, I am so impressed by what you're doing, and I would love to connect with you. And I'm always like, what am I doing? like what is it specifically? And that's how you kind of know it's a bot, because it's not like one is just very like who really kind of talks like that, or somebody's like gotten paid, speaking of paying strategists and experts, somebody's gotten paid very well for that script, because that script's everywhere. And so I see that one quite a lot. Like, well, I love what you're doing. I'd love to connect with you. And I'm always like, and who are you? And why are we connecting? And so, because it's obvious when you do go to their profile, it's like, okay, it's not a job seeker. It's not it's just a very random profile that doesn't look real.
Yeah, or the ones where they say that, I want to, I think it'd be great for this job or this opportunity. It's like, have you even looked at my profile? Like, come on, like that's not what. Like, look at my profile, do your work, and then send me a. I don't mind getting a pitch as long as it's relevant. Like, someone actually sent me a pitch specifically about, are you looking for a VA to help you with topic X? And I was like, you know what, I am. So I responded back. I'm like, you know what, I could use this. Let's chat. Tell me more about your services. Send me a link. And then it turned out that they had some interesting stuff, and I hired them. So it does work as long as it's relevant to you. Clinton, go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of my worries when it comes to LinkedIn is the very things that both of you are describing. My biggest concern around LinkedIn is I would hate to see it become another Twitter. I mean, I get inundated every day with a handful of stalkers and people pitching me to essentially steal my identity. Trying to get cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, all these kinds of things. And I get that every day in Twitter Messenger. Um, and sometimes I'll play along just to kind of entertain myself, just to see how long I can keep them pitching something to me before they finally get bored and move on. But that is a worry I have in LinkedIn because I have noticed an uptick in both of the scenarios that you've described around LinkedIn, specifically in the last 6 months. And I would like to see, LinkedIn and Twitter do a better job. Or I guess in this case, LinkedIn. I'd like to see LinkedIn do a better job of reining in some of these bots, some of these bogus accounts, people hiding behind fake identities. I'm not someone that subscribes to this ridiculous notion, freedom of speech at all expense. Like if you want to send me nonsense about Bitcoin, I'm gonna block you or ban you from my profiles. And I don't care whether you consider that offensive to your freedom of speech or whatever, because I view it as a nuisance. And so, I am worried about that in LinkedIn. And the other thing that drives me crazy about LinkedIn are from time to time, people will offer me jobs on LinkedIn and they'll say, hey, and then I'll say, yeah, sure. What is it? What is it that you want to talk to me about? And then they clearly have not read my career that I've had and the places that I've worked, because you'll get an offer. And I'm not in any way belittling, um, some entry level job. But I'm like, wow, whoever this is doesn't realize that I'm not interested in working at the front counter of a McDonald's. And I'm not in any way knocking the front counter of a McDonald's. I'm just saying that it's ridiculous to me that somebody would approach me and offer me something like that and act in a serious manner when they do it, when they clearly have not read my experiences and where I've traveled and all of these kinds of things. So yeah, I do see some problems with LinkedIn, and it has been something that's been ramping up. I've noticed over the last 6 months, and I'd like to see them do a better job of clamping down on that kind of nonsense.
Yeah, I agree that I'm seeing there's certainly a big shift or rise in some of that stuff that's happening on LinkedIn from how they moderate a lot of spam and the bots and things like that. And it's always interesting because I think LinkedIn and Twitter in particular, those two platforms have really changed a lot in the last 6 months. They're evolving really fast, and some in good ways, but some not so good ways. And so it's always interesting to watch it. I mean, I have a vested interest in LinkedIn and Twitter, in particular those two, but just because on Twitter I have such a large profile and I've spent a lot of time on it here to build up what I have. And LinkedIn, exact same thing. I spent a lot of time and energy to build up what I've had on that platform, and so I want to protect it and be able to leverage it as best I can. But it's funny to me, and here's the other stuff that's really funny to me. That's crazy. A lot of these big platforms. I mean, like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and now TikTok. Like, these are huge, huge beasts of machines. And what's interesting to me is that some of them don't seem to be either listening to one another or seeing what other people are doing or looking at best practices. And it's just so obvious to me how certain things can be done if you look at other profiles and what they do, and they decide to go their own way, and it doesn't go very, very well. Or it just turns out to be not really the best thing. And I think there's a lot to be said if you just do a little bit of due diligence to look at what the other platforms are doing. Instagram is actually a good example of a platform that really looked at so what happened once Facebook bought them out. Instagram started evolving very, very fast, and they started using all the money and resources to change it. But they looked around what was going on, and so Instagram quickly adopted stories from Snapchat, and they started adopting Reels and short videos from TikTok and YouTube, and they started evolving really well on how they handle bots and how they handle verified check marks and how they handle a lot of things, how they handle branded partnerships. LinkedIn, for example, forbids branded partnerships in influencer marketing, whereas Instagram's like, no, please, here, set up a branded partnership with the company X and tag them and follow this policy, and that's great. And I just think there's lots to be learned. And it's funny, Instagram is the hardest platform for me to use personally. I find it really challenging to really understand and figure it out, but it does some really, really good things quite well. And so, LinkedIn, LinkedIn's so big that sometimes it doesn't feel like the left hand is listening to the right hand. I mean, Melanie's experience with the being locked out. I mean, that's exactly what happened, right? They didn't see what the other person was doing. It was so weird, right?
Well, I was just gonna say, because of I have had that experience. Shout out to all the LinkedIn help here on Twitter. Amazing folk. But the reality, I mean, literally, I've like had month-long conversations with them. And the reality was, everyone's like, "Oh, go to Twitter. They'll help you." They are very limited in and they even told me this. I mean, multiple LinkedIn help people on the Twitter side there said, no, we're specifically set up here to monitor when somebody tags the account or if they DM us, and we're basically here to quell your anger. If you've got a really, they will look into it for you, but they have very limited capacity here. They're very nice, I will say that. And they can do some things for you, but if it's not within a certain parameter, they all issues fall into different buckets. And I get it. It's a multi-billion-million-dollar, I don't know how many, whatever company. It's owned by Microsoft. But I think the problem with LinkedIn in particular is that it's gotten so big that they don't really know. They haven't really taken the time to say, okay, what is working, what's not working. I always have, in the recent years, have felt like LinkedIn is just always one step behind everybody else. Oh, let's do stories. And okay, let's not do stories. Let's do LinkedIn Live audio events. Okay, but we're not going to have any features that all the other platforms have. So it's like, okay, you had an opportunity to create something. Why not create it better than what the product is already out there? You have an opportunity to do that. So I just think it's interesting how they, just their whole, it's interesting to see kind of that working. And no, the right hand definitely does not know what in the left hand is doing, because I witnessed that firsthand. Once it goes off to another person, there is no interaction. I don't know where these people are, but they definitely don't read what's in your case, and they definitely don't interact with one another. That is for sure. I can tell you that. And if it does happen, it's rare.
Yeah, no, for sure. I've definitely seen that too. And, it's always interesting, like a platform that's large, that has, 850 million accounts, there's going to be some really funny, weird stuff you'll see along the way. And, one of the things that, going back to the topic of, crazy stuff that happens on LinkedIn. One of the ones that I think is really crazy, and I'm just going to, there's two things I want to share. One is, Twitter, there's a whole discussion about the verified blue check mark and, now gold check mark, gray check marks, whatever it might be. And Instagram has a very, very rigid process to apply for the blue check mark. LinkedIn has now this blue LinkedIn circle that you get when you're a so-called LinkedIn top voice. Although some of these voices that they've branded as such are people who use engagement pods. It's different than having created real influence with your content and your networking and your communication growth on the platform. And so I find that to be a little bit crazy because it's inconsistent. Have a vetting process in place for when you give those out to folks, and really see, understand how they're getting their platforms being so large is one thing that kind of I find odd. So that's a new one. And then And I was going to add another one. Oh yeah, the other one, the other one I don't get, which I think is crazy, is there are some people who they share the same stuff over and over and over again. It's unbelievable, but they do it because I guess it works. But there's one person in particular. She uses engagement pods, and every post is like, "Be happy, happiness. I'm happy. You be happy too. Happy, joy, joy." And there's nothing in her posts about a story. There's nothing in her posts about some sort of insight, some sort of data on happiness. She just says, be happy, I'm happy. And then she uses engagement pods to have like 100 people comment on her post and like her post, and she gets lots of followers. And then every couple of months, she'll say, I have 100,000 followers, I have 110,000 followers, I'm happy, I'm 100. And I'm like, wow, okay, and that's all it is. And now she has like 150,000 followers, and she still posts the exact same stuff over and over again. And I'm curious about how that works and how they make money. But like, wow, it just kind of blows my mind that people. And actually, it reminds me of another funny story, which is I'm switching from LinkedIn now to YouTube. There's a guy on YouTube. I don't have very many subscribers to YouTube, but all my videos are there. This guy on YouTube. He chugs like I believe a liter of water from a big jug, and he does it in different places around the United States. And the guy has 5,000 subscribers, people who just want to see this, and so he has a following. And so it's just funny to me how some people can just share random stuff, and even on LinkedIn, they share repetitive stuff that almost seems nonsensical, but they can actually generate a following in that way. So I find that to be really funny too.
I'm telling you, every day you give me more reason to just share the talking cat.
Yeah, that's right. You're a TikTok cat, right?
Yes, my TikTok cat, which now he may have garnered more followers than just because of him. So no, he does talk. But,
I want to do a quick shout out though before we continue, Melanie, about the thing that we did on TikTok, or sorry, speaking of TikTok and YouTube. So we did a workshop on Saturday where we talked about how to build a content strategy with TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, and how to do more multi-platform expansion. Because most of us are focused on one platform. Maybe we have a second one, but how to grow and how to monetize on multiple platforms. So if anyone's interested, we're actually doing we did this free training, but now we're doing a deeper dive workshop for 2 hours where we're going to take 10 people and train them and go deep on TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter, 30 minutes each in separate rooms. And if you want to learn how to expand or build those platforms, we will personally look at your stuff and your profile and give you some recommendations and handhold you through the process of optimizing your profile and optimizing your strategy. So the link's up there. There's no link to the event. There's a link to just invite you to DM me. If you're interested in doing more of that and want to learn more about how we're doing that, just DM me and I'll share some information about that. But Melanie, continue what you're saying.
I don't even remember at this point.
Sorry.
Yeah,
sorry. I thought that happened. I feel bad.
No, I mean, I think I know the person you were talking about earlier. Well, I think definitely like engagement pods. I mean, those are definitely frustrating, but I've just kind of, when it comes to all of that stuff, I'm just like, okay, that's, I could pay. I mean, there's a particular coach, speaking of a LinkedIn coach, there is a particular LinkedIn coach that's really, she does ask quite a lot of money, and her whole strategy is all linked. I mean, it's just one big engagement pod, which if the person I think you're referencing, that's where that person actually came from. But, and I've just had to kind of just accept, you know what, I'm going to just run my own race. The clients that want me, will find me, and I'll put myself out there, and I'm going to just kind of do it in my own way and what works for me. And yeah, I'm going to listen to what the experts say in terms of what's happening with the algorithm or things like that. But at the end of the day, I'm going to do what does work. Like, for example, this isn't crazy things that are happening on LinkedIn, but Richard Vanderbloom, of course, had his report, and it talks about how polls don't necessarily get a lot of interaction, but last week somebody reposted my poll. Like I get a lot of I do a poll every Sunday on LinkedIn. It's one thing I do. I do, it's usually about job searches, career advice, things like that. Today's is more research informative for myself, for my clients, and things like that. But um, yeah, I mean, but I've been getting a fair amount of traction. So you know what? I do it. I just, I go with the flow, and if it works, it works. So, but I'm not going to get so caught up in like, oh my god, I didn't have 1,000 comments or 100 likes or whatever. So
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and I don't mind saying that her name is Ms. Suchi, the one that does the happy thing all the time, and
I was thinking of somebody else. So
okay, there you go. Yeah, and I'll tell you another funny story about her. I reached out to her actually because she's based in in Asia, I believe in Singapore or something, somewhere, or Thailand. And I said, hey, listen, I'm looking to expand my speaking career in international waters. Since you're based over there, I know you do speaking. Can you share with me a couple of contacts, either for conferences you've spoken at or maybe organizations you've spoken at, and I can maybe start a conversation with them, because we're on LinkedIn, right? And she wrote back these emails about, I'm just so grateful and happy to have a great career, and thanks for your message. I'm happy that you wrote me. And that's all she said. I was like, okay. And then I said,
is she a real person?
And then I just said, I wrote her back. I said, listen, I'm grateful you're happy to connect. I think that's why LinkedIn's so important, that we're connected to each other. But going back to my question, I would love to get, do you have any referrals, or can you speak to places you've spoken at, or maybe let me know the organization? She wrote back, again, same thing, happy, and nothing, and didn't answer my question. So I finally said a third time. I was like, I'm going to keep trying. I just want to have the question answered. Yeah, I said, fine. Minimally, can you tell me a couple of conferences, organizations that are around there that maybe I'll look them up myself if it's too hard for you to give me a name? And then she finally said, yeah, I'm very happy with my career. I spoke at these things, and please don't reach out to me again. I'm like, okay. I was like, okay. And of course, I reached out to her again. I said, thank you so much for that. Again, I think it's important for us to stay connected on LinkedIn and whatnot. And, I think we should help each other out. Like if you want conferences that you want to speak at in Canada or North or US, I'm happy to share with you some information. And if you want to go even more deeper, I'm happy to share specific contacts, because I think that would be a great way for us to help each other out. And then she blocked me. She blocked me on LinkedIn. I found out later. It's the funniest thing. And the only reason she unblocked me was I was in some sort of conversation, or I think I was doing some sort of event, and she was part of it. And because, and I called it out, I told the organizer, look, the reason that you can't see her or see me is because I believe that person has blocked me. You may want to ask her to unblock me so we can all get along and do this event. And so she did. And so now she's now unblocked me. So there's another great example of crazy stuff that happens on LinkedIn. So I think that would be a good way for us to end this call, guys. I want to thank, right? So
yep.
I want to thank everybody for being here. Melanie, thanks for co-hosting. Thank Clinton for sharing your knowledge, and other people who've been here. There will be a replay, of course. And if you want to learn more about the TikTok, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, deeper dive to expand your profile, optimize your content strategy, and monetize on the platform, DM me, take a tweet up there, DM me, and we'll talk more about it. But in the meantime, I'll be doing another event. I do LinkedIn events, Twitter Spaces, and I do LinkedIn audio events. So Twitter Space tomorrow morning, 11 a.m., called the Power Connection Chat. I'm probably going to talk something similar to what's up above in that tweet. And then on Tuesday at 4 p.m., I do LinkedIn audio events, LinkedIn Mastery with Rachel Simon. So you can look for that as well. So have yourself a wonderful Sunday, guys. For those who are enjoying the soccer or football, have fun with that. And we'll talk again soon. All right?
Thanks. Bye.
No problem. Oh, and I see there's a quick question here. Max Morales asks, why they have not launched the audio app so strong? Are they waiting into the year? They should get quite good client user base. Well, LinkedIn has done a terrible job of the LinkedIn audio app. I mean, it's there because people are on LinkedIn and want to have those audio conversations, and that's why I still do them twice per week. But overall, it's poorly executed. It's not as good as. It's not even anywhere close to Twitter Space or Clubhouse. Like those ones are far, far better with functionality, links, replays, like just so many things they have from a functionality perspective. LinkedIn is gaming on the fact that they're the only play in town that's for professionals. They're gaming the fact that they don't have to be super duper, and people are still going to use it, which is true. But what are you going to do about that? That's some of that crazy stuff that happens on LinkedIn. Anyway, thanks everybody for being here. I always do LinkedIn Mastery or LinkedIn Lounge Lizards on Sundays at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can join me next week for that. Otherwise, enjoy the replay, have fun, and I'll see you guys later. So long.